Well, we've made it officially one day away from the 2025 NFL Draft, and I'm joined today with a special guest, Stonehard Sports. I feel like last year we did a lot more mock drafts, kind of leading up to the draft. This time, not as much, but we still have one today, kind of predicting the last results here, and it's a very unique draft because I wouldn't say there's a ton of elite blue chip players in this class. I mean, last year there were so many top quarterbacks where we had all of them going at the top 10, top 15. Obviously on draft night, the crazy selection of Michael Penix Jr. But this time around, it's more like a deep class of good players, but not necessarily a lot of elite ones. So it's going to be a very interesting draft because we really have no idea where some of these players are going to fall, how teams use some of these guys, even some trades. There's been a lot of rumors about some trades happening, whether it's the end of the draft, some teams trading up for maybe a quarterback, or maybe even early in the draft. So we're going to try and simulate some of those in today's mock draft. Stone, how are we doing? Are you ready for another year of NFL drafts?
Yeah, for sure. I know I haven't done a lot of NFL draft stuff as I had hoped, but I've done a lot of research in that time, and so getting some videos out now. But yeah, happy to join you. I think for this draft, like you said, it seems like I mean, people kind of view it as weak. I think it's weaker at the top, but deeper in the middle. Like the best, I think a third round pick this year is probably better than a third round pick in the past few years. So I think that's a good bonus. It's just you'll probably get a lot of good starters, solid starters, stuff like that, which I think can be pretty valuable for teams that can maybe get those guys on cheap deals. So I think teams that have a lot of picks in this draft are probably going to come out with some pretty good grades and pretty happy, but that might mean that you're going to see maybe some risky picks at the top to try and take advantage of some potential, high value / high potential guys there. So very interested to see what happens. We literally haven't had a trade yet, right? So that's literally never happened. So a lot of anomalies here with this draft, but I know both of us are still excited because draft season's always good, and I think just having a draft where chaos happens might be better than one where we don't really, one where we already know the top, although maybe that's the case in this year's draft, but I guess we'll kind of see with our mock. But the middle end should be super fun along with day two. Really excited.
Yep, always an awesome time of the offseason, but I'm going to have all the odd picks. Stone will take the even selections. We're also going to kind of review them, talk about them, analyze them together, but the final say for all these picks, I get the odds, he gets the evens. And the first overall pick, it is going to be Cam Ward out of Miami going to Tennessee. This has kind of been set in stone for, I would say, a month now. There was some debate early in the draft process. Maybe the Titans will go Travis Hunter. Maybe they're going to go Abdul Carter. No, it was always Cam Ward. He's kind of just the best quarterback in this class. Probably, you could say, the most polished. I would say he does need some refinement in terms of playing in the confines and structure of the offense. But when you compare his upside and what he can do from day one for the Titans, and you compare him to maybe some of the other high ceiling players like a Jalen Milroe, for example, he's going to need a lot more refinement. And I think Cam Ward, with his multiple years starting and the collegiate level, is going to be able to step in and be a good quarterback, I'd say, for Tennessee from day one. And they have no quarterback on the roster. It's Will Levis. Are we really going to go into another season with Will Levis as a day one starter in the NFL? I don't think that's the right move. And I think the Tennessee Titans, they realized that, came to their conclusions. And I think Cam Ward is going to be their quarterback of the future there. And now it's about surrounding him, making sure they can get some proper development from him to make sure he can be worth that top pick in the draft.
Yeah, I think a lot, we've gone over this a million times with it's kind of been set in stone for a while. But, I mean, they're kind of forced into it, in my opinion. I think obviously if you look back at the history of number one picks, just as prospects, we have no idea what the future holds. Maybe he's so much better than we thought. But in terms of just the prospect itself at number one, it's definitely lower on the list, especially at quarterback. But, I mean, I think this isn't a direct maybe play style comparison, maybe a little bit. But in terms of his impact career, like I could easily just see like a Derek Carr. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. Like good quarterback, has some really high highs. Derek Carr was a former, I don't know if you remember back in 2016, 17, somewhere around there, 15, like MVP candidate for a year and then got injured. He's had some really good years, had some down years, a little bit reliant on maybe who's around him, but Good playmaker. So, a good starting quarterback that I think maybe if you replayed Derek Carr's career again, he'd probably have more playoff wins, just because of his Raiders situation that he has with his head coaches and all that stuff. So, again, don't think it's bad. I think it's good for the organization to get someone like that. It's just I am a little objectively worried about the weapons situation, at least on offense, but I think lucky for them, seems like there might be a lot of receivers that go in day 2. I love a ton of day 2 receivers, class. So yeah, I think that'd be good to add there. And then just you got to revamp the defense, but just for Ward himself, like it'll be cool. He's a pretty good playmaker, kind of hectic, but that's kind of what he does. So letting the world as his oyster basically for that kind of offense, I think it'll be cool to see. So interested there, but yeah, kind of set in stone there with him there. And then number 2, I think is also done, and that's Travis Hunter. There's been reports that both the Giants and the Browns are trying to, or they're kind of fielding calls, and maybe guys will trade up. I think that's just kind of BS. I don't think either of them will, to be honest. I think they're just going to take one of the 2 best blue chip guys, which is Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And both of them, one of them's at a valuable position. The other one is literally one of the craziest athletes we've ever seen, playing 2 sides of the ball. In terms of what he'll be with Cleveland, like it's just, he wants to play both sides, and I'm not trying to throw like concerns here, but I don't know. It feels like it's just hard. It's going to be hard to see him at all play heavily on both sides of the ball. That would just seem absurd. Maybe he does it and he proves us wrong, but I feel like he should be used.
What do you think he should focus on?
I feel like he should be used more on the side that is more impactful, which is a receiver. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like, and they would probably prefer having a receiver on the team to add with Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman's kind of their number 2. But then I think come in on like third downs, like spot third downs, big plays, maybe throw them in on a second or first, mix it up when you have a nickel defense or something, or maybe not a nickel, but like a heavy front, and then you just need a really good lockdown man-to-man on the outside when you're playing. Throw Travis Hunter out there. So I think he should play majority offense because he's going to make more of an impact there. It's just obviously my concern is like injuries and ability to, I mean, he's going to have to be so busy with both sides of the ball, but it seems like he's committed to doing that, to be honest. And I do believe that, and I think he will succeed there. It's just, I think he's literally, it seems like he's like a Hall of Fame corner. I think he's a Hall of Fame corner, and he's like probably the best or second best receiver in the class. So his receiver's a little worse, but it's still really good. But honestly, that could all just be watered down to who cares. Like, let's just see him play. He looks really good, and I'm kind of intrigued to see what he does.
Yeah, Hunter's just a generational, type of player. I honestly go on the other side. I think he should play corner primarily. I think that's easier to kind of have him in certain packages or sets on offense. Like maybe just the red zone. The Browns get in the red zone, then you put in Hunter to play receiver. But I think nonetheless, the Browns, they just need some more talent, and I would just say superstar talent, and that's Travis Hunter. So I think it's the perfect fit in Cleveland. I don't think it really helps them, at least in terms of next season, because the quarterback situation, it's one of the worst in the league. They're going to have Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett kind of battle it out, I guess, for who's going to start week 1 for them. But who knows? But the New York Giants with the 3rd overall pick, another interesting spot here because there's been a lot of smoke. I feel like every year the Giants are just, you never really know what they're going to do. I think last year was when they were, talking about Roma Dunze a ton and how that was going to be the pick. And they had some like character flags with Neighbors, and then they took Neighbors and they just try to fool everybody. And maybe they're trying to do that again with maybe Abdul Carter, and they're going to take Shedeur Sanders. I don't know. That's just a possibility because it's been reported the Giants have done the most homework out of any team on Shedeur Sanders. So if they secretly just love him, then maybe they'll feel comfortable taking him so early in the draft. I personally wouldn't do that, but you never know how some of these teams operate and think. But I think for the sake of this mock draft and really what I view and kind of the recent news and rumors we've gotten, I think Abdul Carter out of Penn State is going to be the pick. And I wouldn't say that's the best selection that the Giants could have because I think they would really want Travis Hunter because he's more of kind of what they need on their team. I mean, they've invested so much on the defensive line already. Ryan Burns, they traded for him, gave him a huge contract. have already Dexter Lawrence on the interior. They drafted Kayvon Thibodeau very early in the first round not too long ago. So investing another pick in a pass rusher this early, I mean, you can never have enough pass rushers, but I'm sure they would rather take Travis Hunter, who can have an impact on both sides of the ball, than adding even more resources into one of the better units on their entire team. So I think the Giants just at the end of the day are like, this is the best player on our board. We're going to take him here. But I think they would definitely like those picks to be swapped and the Browns take Carter. But yeah, we're going to have Carter go here to the Giants with the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, that'd probably make more sense, I guess, for both, because you can get one opposite Garrett. And I mean, earlier you had Garrett with his concerns of contract, but now he's there
And traded.
And then here, you can get a corner that they need. But I think I kind of do like that the Giants are doing this and not forcing something. I don't think it's going to be Sanders at 3 at least. Like at specifically number 3, I don't think they would take him just because the value's not there. And so I kind of agree with that. So I'm glad they're doing it. He's the best player on the board. Yeah, maybe they prefer Hunter, but I think either one they can get. It's just they'll probably trade like Kayvon Thibodeau because he's the other kind of starting edge and former 8th overall pick. Hasn't really lived up to the hype. I mean, he's been good, but not like that good. So
Yeah.
Interested to see there. I know he also has an injury that he's
Couple injuries, yeah.
looking if he's going to get surgery or not. Maybe he goes into the team. They say you need surgery. Maybe he does, and maybe he doesn't need surgery. Who knows? But I think either way, pure talent. Like he's Micah Parsons-esque. That's kind of what he looks like. So really good there. Patriots at 4. I think some could say the draft starts right here, but I think it kind of just waters down to offensive line or seemingly Ashton Jeanty. Seems like Ashton Jeanty is getting a ton of love, going even higher. And that's very much a possibility. But I think in terms of something else that came out, it seems like the Patriots are just going to try, even if it's not the best value, just make the right pick for the team. And I think normally in every scenario, I would say pick the best overall player, like who might be really talented. But in this case, when you have a team that I think they think has their franchise quarterback and just cannot mess it up, like don't do what the Jaguars are doing right now and have a guy that, yes, is a franchise quarterback, but has not really played to his peaks in Trevor Lawrence, partly because of development, partly because of what's around him. You don't want that to happen. And with Drake May, like there's only so long he can last with this O-line. You sign Morgan Moses, that's literally it. Like everything else is kind of So I think they'll probably do this even if he's not the best there. And it's probably going to be Will Campbell, just very safe. Probably going to have a really long career. Not going to be a bust, but not probably going to be the 4th best player in the class when it's all said and done. But it's still something they really need it. They just really need offensive line. And this offensive line class for the 2nd round is one that's very much up in the air. Doesn't really have a lot of, all right, good to go starters, a lot of developmental guys. Patriots really would prefer someone right now. But, hey, maybe they could take Jeanty. That'd be the other one that is very possible. That would be really interesting. I wouldn't hate it, but I would really prefer them if they do that, go on the market and get whatever old free agent offensive lineman is there right now, because they would need help there. And Jeanty, I think, is going to be really good, but you limit his ceiling as well if you don't have a good offensive line. So I think it helps in general, and just the value proposition of Will Campbell now, offensive line, and then getting maybe a running back later compared to just Jeanty now and then a much worse offensive line later. You kind of take the value there and probably go Campbell there. So we'll have him go 4.
Yeah, Campbell, I think that's going to be interesting because if he just plays guard or maybe even center or whatever, interior offensive line for the Patriots, you're going to look back and go, man, they really spent a top 5 pick on him. But I think if the Patriots do make that selection, it's going to be like they're going to try everything in their power to make him play one of their tackle positions because.
And I just don't think I don't know.
That's
hard to work out, but I think he's gonna be a Pro Bowler though, in my opinion. Like I think he will be. So I don't think they're gonna fully regret it, but maybe when we look back, like I said, he's not gonna be the 4th best. He's not gonna be the 4th best player probably.
Now the Jacksonville Jaguars. This might be the most up in the air pick. I would say maybe in the top 10. Like, really nobody has any clue what the Jaguars are thinking here. For a while, it was like Mason Graham out of Michigan. He's going to be the selection. It's a no doubt about it, slam dunk. And there were some whispers. Is it going to be Ashton Jeanty? Is it going to be Tataroa McMillan? Will it be an offensive lineman? I'm honestly kind of lost here with the Jaguars. I have no idea what they're thinking. So I might just go with kind of a crazy pick, and it might just kind of impact the rest of our board and how this draft is shaken out. But they have a completely new regime. They had Gladstone. He was like the assistant GM or one of the top guys for the LA Rams. And they got Liam Cohen from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's coming from a high-powered offense in Tampa Bay that had a big arsenal of weapons. They had, of course, Bucky Irving in the backfield. They had Mike Evans out wide, Chris Godwin. I think the Jaguars are going to go receiver here. I'm going to go Tataroa McMillan from Arizona. And I'm going to imagine here that Liam Cohen is envisioning McMillan to be his Mike Evans in Jacksonville. I know last year they spent a first-round pick on Brian Thomas Jr., who was one of the best rookie receivers we've seen in some time. But I think him and McMillan as a 1-2 punch could instantly be one of the best receiver duos in the league. Still having both of those players in some cost-controlled deals for the next 5 seasons, that could be pretty scary. And I think the biggest thing for Jacksonville at this point is just developing Trevor Lawrence, because no matter who they draft inside the top 5 here, if Lawrence doesn't improve under the tutelage of Liam Cohen, the Jaguars will be in this range picking for years to come, and it won't really matter who they pick here. So I think they're just going to try and get him another weapon, and we're going to go McMillan. I don't know if this pick is going to be well received. Maybe I should have just gone with the chalk and still done Mason Graham, but I want to have McMillan go here. What do you think about that?
Don't doubt yourself. Don't do that. I like it. I mean, this is funny enough. What I did in my mock draft, I just finished. It was the final mock draft. I just uploaded it, and I had McMillan going here because the reports are that they are going to do something that is a bit unexpected. And like you said, Mason Graham was kind of the pick from the beginning, but it was kind of just the consensus of like looking at the team and what we think,
their need,
not what the team thinks. And so I think here it's either Jeanty or McMillan. And if you went, Jeanty there would have made a lot of sense. But I think McMillan makes more sense, as weird as that sounds. Jeanty's better, but McMillan makes more sense because, again, you mentioned kind of the weapons with Trevor Lawrence, obviously. But, like, having ETN and Tank Bigsby, like, putting Jeanty in there definitely kicks one out, If you put McMillan in, it kicks out who? Like Gabe Davis, and he's a 4th now? That's kind of what he should be anyways, Like De'Ami Brown, is he like a super trustworthy number 2 now? I don't know. I mean, would you be shocked if he signed this deal? And it's only a 1-year deal, by the way. He signed this deal, and then it was just because he was only good with, the Commanders' offense. Like, I wouldn't be surprised with that. It's basically what happened with Gabe Davis with them. So, I do like this. I think it makes a lot of sense, and having that pairing is great. Liam Cohen, like you said, the whole reason they hired him was to help solve this issue of, hey, we have our quarterback, we do. He's just not living up to what it is, and we think it's our fault and what we've surrounded him with. So Cohen's there to help save, and we're like, all right, we'll be for real and go get a receiver there. So I do like that. With the Raiders, we can talk this one out a little bit. We think, obviously, and the rumors are like partly supporting it too. I think there's 2 kind of things here. Jeanty, obviously, they need it. It's there. It's been picked. Or Mason, a guy he's going to go in the top 10, 1,000,000%. 8 is his floor. I'm telling you, 8 is his floor. We could still have him at 8, just proposing something here. Jalen Walker seems to be a guy that is probably going to go really high, and it seems like he could even start at Jacksonville. I don't think he will, but realistically, like, the Raiders could be a team or someone like that would snag him ahead of Carolina, and that has actually been mocked recently. So I think, let me see your thoughts of Walker versus Jeanty, or if you maybe like one of the other interior guys like Mason Graham, who was supposed to go to the Jaguars.
The Jags. The Raiders. I don't really think they're gonna go Genty personally. There was like a presser of Pete Carroll with their new GM, and he
wasn't he like really trying to? Yeah, like
he was like being weird, like don't say too much about running backs or something. Like he was making it kind of too obvious. I don't know. I feel like he was trying too hard to kind of throw off the scent there. I just don't know if the Raiders are going to go.
I kind of felt that too, like Peter Schrager has said, like like Genty to there is real, but there's just been I don't know, the past 2 days there's been a ton of like Walker Raiders love, and I think it's like I said, people just kind of realizing like, hey, these guys at the top are really good, but the class is too deep for its own good, to where you're just like, okay, well, let's wait. I know we have this guy here, but if we really need this, let's wait. I think if there were to be a team that would pick him this high, the Raiders would kind of be it, because the running back room sucks. So, it would make sense. And I think people that have picked it, like, it makes sense. I did it for one mock draft. But, I mean, this one, we want to be a little bit different, and it's at the end. I mean, I did have it in my last one, but let's go Jalen Walker here. I think he's probably going to go higher than people think. The Panthers, like I said, is his most likely destination. Like, if this is Genty, he's a Panther for sure. But his athleticism is just going to push him up a ton, kind of like the Trayvon Walker situation a few years ago. Obviously, with him being number 1, this guy being number 6, but this is one I don't really hate. Sometimes I think we don't like the guys that just get pushed up last second that don't deserve. I mean, Jalen Walker, I feel like is good because he's so versatile, insanely athletic.
So you're higher on Walker. I don't love him a ton because I
don't have him as the 6th best player, but I understand the thinking of him going.
My thing
high.
is, I just don't know where you're gonna play him full time, because he's like 6'1". Are you going to have him as a full-time edge rusher, or are you going to have him as an off-ball linebacker? Or are you going to keep him kind of in that hybrid role where he's kind of playing both? It's like, how do you kind of assess his value?
I think the success of Micah Parsons has kind of shown, like, okay, it's definitely there. Like, it's there. You got to be athletic enough, but you can do it. Like, Micah Parsons lines up on the D-line, off the edge, sometimes in the box, as well as like, blitzing, covering. Like, he does all that, and that's kind of what you're trying to envision with Walker. And he does have the athletic stuff, but yeah. I think it like when I had him going to the Panthers, my thinking was like, okay, the Panthers, defense is not set in stone, so he realistically, it's not like he's okay in like every. There are some guys that are okay all around, but don't excel anywhere. He's like pretty good all around, and he can excel like in pass rush. That's kind of his biggest thing is pass rush. So he can play in the box and everything like that, and get good there. But he's not going to be useless like and somewhere else because he's a really good pass rusher, and you're probably going to use him more for that. It's just he can be a 3-4 outside linebacker pass rusher, or a 4-3 like blitzing kind of linebacker, or edge. Like, he can play edge too, and I think he could bulk up anyways. He needs to be a better run defender, and he's objectively raw. Like, I understand that. That's why I don't think, again, he's not the 10th best player. Like, he's not great in coverage. So that needs to be improved. But he's 21. He just turned 21, and again, the kind of athleticism, pass rush, that's the big thing. You think of Micah Parsons. I think Abdul Carter is more of a pure pass rusher compared to linebacker that Carter was, whereas Walker's probably more of like a pure linebacker. That they're kind of one and the other, in terms of what Micah Parsons really is. But that's what as simple as it sounds, that's what these teams are going for. They're trying to go for Micah, some kind of combination of that. And Walker's more of the linebacker type, and Carter's more the edge type. But that's kind of the thing. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to 100% succeed, but I kind of see, I do see the realm there of what they are thinking. And he's from North Carolina, by the way, so that would work if he actually goes to the Panthers. But he's just gotten a lot of love. He really has, and I think he's going to go higher than people think.
All right, well, the New York Jets with the 7th overall pick. I'm going to go Mason Graham out of Michigan. I think this would be a good fit for the Jets here. They need some help on the interior of their defensive line. And Mason Graham, like I said, was seen as kind of a blue chip player in this class for a long time. And he slides a little bit, I mean, not a ton, but a little bit to number 7, where the Jets get him here. Graham's an interesting player. He's another pretty polarizing guy where some people really like him and other people are not as high on him. Some people even like his teammate Kenneth Grant as a better overall prospect translating to the NFL than him. I'm a little bit lower, I would say, on Mason Graham. I just see him as a pretty high floor, but I don't know how good he's going to ever emerge. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that reaches multiple Pro Bowls, is a multiple-time All-Pro. I don't know, but I think at the very least,
a top 10 player in the class.
I think in this class, I would probably have him as a top 10 player, just because you know he's at least going to be like a good NFL starter, where some of the other guys you could have here a little bit more inherent risk. So I would probably have him around that 10 range, but it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I think he's good at a lot, but again, he's not great. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the biggest guy. He's just a good football player. So it's kind of a hard evaluation if he's going to be, as dominant as he was in Michigan. He doesn't really have all the same physical tools and whatnot in the NFL. So interesting player here, but I'm going to have the Jets pair him up to Quinnen Williams, which will be a really big boost for him. Have Williams take on those double teams, at least early on in his career. So the Jets, they get some more help on their defensive line. Their new regime coming in. They're really focusing on the trenches. That was a huge thing in Detroit with Aaron Glenn. Kind of knows that team building aspect. So let's have the Jets go on the defensive line here.
Yeah, so I had this too, because if Graham falls, my thinking was just the Jets might not be able to pass up on him. The reports are that they really like Tyler Warren and Jahdae Barron. That's kind of who they like, and they might like Barron even more. So there's a possibility Barron is the 7th pick. I think it's more likely maybe that he's not, just because the NFL has shown us their opinion of slot corners like in the past 4 years, and I've hated it every single time. Like, I love Trent McDuffie, Cooper DeJean, Brian Branch. Like, they always just push these guys down, and shocker, they always end up being super good. So I think he'd be worth it there. But yeah, I mean, makes sense. I do think Mason Graham is probably around the 6th or 7th best player, at least in my opinion. I think he has a very high floor, but I actually do think he has flashes, high ceilings at times, just because he's already a super good run defender that when he shows good pass rushing upside, then he's amazing. It's not super consistent, but it's possible that happens. It's just the odds are not likely because his arms and hands are really short, like for an interior defender. So that's kind of the reason why his ceiling's lower, is because of his length. That's kind of the issue there. And that's why some teams literally have Walter Nolan higher, because they see the athletic length and freak and have him higher, even if the production isn't better. But I do think it's good for the Jets, because Quinnen Williams is the only real interior guy there. Everyone else sucks, and if he's hurt, then you're screwed. So you're always going to have 2 of those guys on the field, so that's good. Panthers at 8, my favorite team. Like I said, this is Jalen Walker, if he's here. If not, I think it's, you might see some people say, receiver or whatever. Unless it's McMillan, even if McMillan's on the board, I still don't think you take him, because you could just get one later, and I just don't think that's something they really need right now, to be honest. Like, you just drafted one in the first round last year, give him a year. Plus, he's not too far off from McMillan, like scheme wise. Like, they're both big body guys, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense for me personally. But it seems like it could be a trade. It's just you got to think who's trading up and for who. I don't know. Does a team love Genty a ton? Maybe. If Mason Graham didn't go to the Jets, a team could jump the Saints for him. It's just Walter Nolan's on the board. Some people have those guys really close. Armand Membu, he's the last maybe top 10-ish tackle. But that would be jumping the Saints, which is a possibility. It's just who would do that, 49ers maybe, but they've seemed to want to trade back more. And then you got to go kind of all the way down to the Texans or the Chiefs. Both of them want to be active, but from 31 and 25, you'd be giving up a lot. You would, so it's possible. Just want to throw that out there. But for pick purposes, I think I'll stay here. And I'll go the guy that's been rumored the most. And it seems like if it's not one Georgia guy, it's the other. And that's Micah Williams. This is not what I would pick. This is just what I've been hearing. But they really want some kind of just athletic edge, out there. And it seems like they just really like both these Georgia guys. And I think they want someone more versatile than just a pure hand in the dirt edge, which Mike Green is kind of like that. Donovan Izaraku is like that. James Pierce is like that. All these guys are like that. But it seems like that's not really what they want. And Micah Williams has been going up the board a lot recently. And, I just, as a Panthers fan, I'd begrudgingly clap because I think he's like a really late first round, early second round pick. He's very young. He has ideal size, really long arms. He was injured at the start of the year, but he's like your classic, athletic Georgia edge. He's still a little bit raw, but he's a really good run defender, but he hasn't really shown a lot of pass rushing upside, which concerns me for a guy you're taking at,
top 10,
8th overall. And Mason Graham is like that, but Mason Graham is so good in what he does. And this guy is just he's good, So I don't know. I'd be nervous, for sure. I would be nervous if he's there. He's not bad, but I don't know if he's ever going to be worth it. I think his ceiling is like Greg Rousseau for the Bills, who's a good starting edge, but his floor is like a kind of a bust. Not a guy that sucks, but not someone that's the 8th overall pick. So as a Panthers fan, as you can see right there, I don't know. I'd be kind of conflicted. But that seems to be what I'm hearing, and not what I'm hearing, but on what I'm reading from what other people are hearing. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like Micah Williams a lot. I actually think I like him a little bit more than Jalen Walker just because of his size factor there. And I just think right away, at least, he projects better because, like you said, he's a great run defender. And with his size and athleticism and all that, I think if he goes to the right place and he can't get developed, why can't he end up being a more complete and better player than Jalen Walker? So I do get the production concerns, but he also, at Georgia, he played interior sometimes. He can play on the edge as well. He's another versatile guy, a part of that Georgia defense. So I'm a pretty big fan of Micah Williams. I think he's a guy that, again, I had mocked pretty early, in the top 10, top 15. Then I started seeing a lot of people have him go bottom half of the first round. I always kind of had.
So you were on it before it was cool. Is that what you're saying?
I suppose so. I mean, is it back? I mean, I still see a lot of people have him mocked.
I don't.
Later first.
I've been reading that he's probably going to go pretty high, and the Panthers specifically, because of if Walker goes, then the Panthers might just take him.
I mean, I like that. I mean, I think Micah Williams will be a good player if he gets that proper development. All right, the New Orleans Saints now picking number 9 overall. Another team. I don't really have a good feel on what they're going to do. Could go offensive line. Ryan Ramczyk just officially retired. So they could just go Armand Membo here. Help their offensive line. Maybe Walter Nolan, as you stated. Really high upside. A great pass rushing interior defensive lineman. But I'm going to do something a little bit unique here. And I don't know if it would happen because I don't think they would want to trade with specifically this team. And you'll understand why in a second, but I'm going to have the Denver Broncos move up from number 20 inside the top 10, sniping the Chicago Bears of Ashton Jeanty here. Let's just say they give up 51 and next year's second and 85, something like that. Whatever, it doesn't matter. We're going to have the Broncos move up here to take Jeanty, and there's been a team that has been talked about a lot of potentially moving up, wanting to move up in the draft, being aggressive for a running back or maybe even a tight end. But with Jeanty falling here, because there has been, Jeanty's going to be a top 5 lock. Jeanty's going to go very early. And this mock draft that we've got him falling to number 9. And I think once he gets to that range, there's going to be some teams calling and wanting to move up to snag him. And I think the Broncos here, Sean Payton can get his hands on Jeanty. surround Bo Nix with him, oh man, that would be so fun to watch. But I think Ginty, I wouldn't say I'm lower on him. I just hold a more rational opinion almost on running backs in general. I just think with this class and how deep it is with running backs, I mean, I've said it so many times. There's so many good players in this draft. Trayvon Henderson, Hampton, Sampson, Caleb Johnson. I even like Cam Scatterbu. I mean, there's just so many good running backs you can get in day 3 that I'm like, why would you want to take a running back inside the top 5 or top 10? No, Ginty's a really good player, but I don't know. I just don't really see the value there. But for this mock and with all the smoke around the Broncos that do want to take a running back very early, why not just go get the best one in this draft and trade a couple of picks? But I think Ginty in Denver would be such a fun fit. Just coming down to the Saints, wanted to trade with a coach that would on him.
Yeah, that would be because it's not one that we've heard obviously at all, but there's reports that someone reported the Broncos want to be they're like potentially aggressive, like they could be looking to trade up, and then that they're focusing on running back. That seems to be the focus. So, one of those could just be them staying and picking Hampton. The other one could be, them maybe doing this, or maybe Hampton goes higher than where we think, and the team could take him higher. I don't know, but this is interesting for the Saints because they, also seem like a quarterback team, but not at 9. They're not going to pick a quarterback at 9. So if they stay here, then it'd probably be like Membu or Walter Nolan if he's there, or if Mason Graham falls, then probably Mason Graham, probably his floor. But yeah, with here, that'd be super interesting. I think it's probably running back for them, no matter where they are, or tight end if Colson Loveland falls. That's kind of what I'm thinking there.
Agreed.
And Colson Loveland's kind of been rumored to be higher than we think as well. It's just, I don't know. It's really hard to fit him in and somewhere in here. But yeah, that'd be amazing, I think, for that offense. I think, my thoughts would just kind of depend on what they give up. I don't want them to give up too much. But, Ginty he's fallen in this kind of world that we've lived in here. Bears fans probably going to cry if he goes and gets a trade ahead. But, he literally has Hall of Fame potential. That's literally what we're looking at here. He's very polarizing because, some people definitely hate him, I think, just because of them talking about who he played against. And he had one amazing game versus Oregon, but then one terrible game against Penn State, So just super hard. I think the Penn State game, like, you could look and say, hey, he was facing one of the best defensive lines. So that could really kind of be there. And the only thing with him is just maybe the ball security is not as ideal as you would think. Like, Hampton's better at taking care of the ball for sure. But what we've seen has just been insane, So that'd be kind of interesting to see. I think Sean Payton would get the best of him for sure. But I don't know. He's not like a crazy receiver, so that'd be kind of interesting to see who else they would use. So maybe for, I don't know, do they get Jaleel McLaughlin maybe receives all the time? Maybe they force Ginty to get better. I don't know. That'd be interesting. But obviously, if he falls to the Bears, they're taking him, I think. So unfortunately, Bears fans in this world, that's not going to happen. But here, it's hard between Membu and Walter Nolan. The thing is, from what I've heard and seen, it seems like Membu is a top 10 lock. That's what has been reported. Membu is totally going to go top 10, and if not 11. So in this world, like, I think Walter Nolan makes sense. I've liked Jahad Campbell to them. I've been a Jahad Campbell is a top 10 guy to the Bears kind of thing. That's what I've been thinking because he fits a need for them. But with predictive stuff that we're doing, I think I'm going to go Armand Membu, tackle out of Missouri. I think him and Walter Nolan, him and Will Campbell, I think are the two safe first-round guys, at least at tackle specifically, even though Will Campbell might play guard, the ones that are listed as tackle here. For the Bears, I think when you look at their O-line, I know we think that they just did a bunch of stuff, but like when you realistically look at it, they got guys on the interior like Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman. They have, and then their guards we kind of already know about. But Braxton Jones is 26 and on the last year of his deal and has been hurt every single year. And then Darnell Wright is a good first-round pick that they have that had a really good year last year. But outside of that, there's nobody, and you kind of have to decide, do we want to pay a guy that we drafted in the 5th round who is good but has been injured a ton, like all the time? And so that's kind of what this is. Some teams, you got to look at their roster and be like, all right, we're drafting a year ahead based on who's on the board. We really like who's on the board. We'll draft a year ahead. And offensive line with Ben Johnson, we know how freaking important it is with him being a Detroit Lion. So, some people might hate it, but I think if you just use your brain and maybe think for a minute, like, yeah, realistically, it's probably planning for the future because they're really trying to make sure that's not a problem. Offensive line should not be a problem and not an excuse for the Bears next year, and they want to make sure that happens. And their depth, they need to address it a ton in free agency for a reason because the depth is terrible. So, based on who's on the board, we'll go Membu. If not, like we said, Genty is probably who I'm looking at there. Or if, Mason Graham, or probably not Mason Graham, but if Will Campbell falls, then sure. It's probably that.
I like Membu as a top 10 selection. Yeah, I echo kind of what you said. I mean, sometimes just with how the board falls, you take the best player available, even if he's not going to be necessarily a day one starter for you. Because, I mean, like you mentioned, there's a lot of kind of injury-prone guys on that Bears line. So I'm sure at some point Membu would be in that starting lineup. But the 49ers, this is tough. This is kind of a tough break for them because you've got the 2 best offensive linemen off the board. You don't get Mason Graham if you see him as the best defensive tackle. I was thinking maybe Walter Nolan here. The only concern I've had with him is there's been a lot of like, oh, he's got character issues. And it's always a tough thing to, I don't know, like how real are they? Is it actually going to impact his stock that much where he's not going to go early in the first round? Because, I mean, he's an early first round talent, but if teams don't trust him, then he's not going to be selected by them. And so it kind of all depends on how each one of these teams view him. But I definitely think he would be in a range here and definitely a player to look at. I also think maybe somebody like Kelvin Banks Jr. is somebody the 49ers could look at here as well because he's got some guard and tackle flexibility, and those are a couple of needs on their team. And they're trying to find their Trent Williams replacement. He fits in their zone running scheme as well. But I don't know. I feel like 11's a little bit too rich for him. You got any say on this pick here?
I'll tell you, from what I've read, Nolan's actually been connected to the Niners. And he's supposed to go higher than we think. So both of those were reports that came out. He's going to go higher than we think. Some teams have him, like we said, over Mason Graham, like I had mentioned earlier, and he's connected to the Niners. So I think it makes a ton of sense if you want to do that. I totally have your backing. The other guys I would think of would just be offensive tackle, and you had mentioned him. But I think Josh Simmons would be better, or Simons, because I think he's the best pure tackle. It's just he got injured, and that's why he's lower, because he tore his ACL in the midway through the year. But he could get healthy and then come in when Trent Williams is gone. So I think Simmons would be a better pick for them personally. But Nolan would be ideal, and they have no one in the interior. Like the only guy on the D line is Nick Bosa. I don't know. 49ers doesn't it kind of feel like they don't really give a shit and they just draft like they have a million personalities on the team, like Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. It seems like they just they have some issues, personality wise. So even if that is true, it seems like they don't really care.
That's a good point. So I'll buy that and have Walter Nolan go here. I actually really like Nolan. I think he's got a chance to be one of the best players in this entire draft because of how he can get after the passer. He does need some development, I would say, in the run game. It's just he's a little bit undersized for the defensive tackle position, so he can get kind of moved, I would say, in the run game at times. But where he's going to win in the run game is because he's so quick. He can just kind of speed past offensive linemen and just get in the backfield. But I think if he is going to become an elite player, he's going to have to get a little bit stronger and just kind of work on his frame a little bit where he's not just getting blown off the ball in the run game. But I just think immediately as a pass rusher, you got him and Nick Bosa. That would be pretty elite. And the 49ers really need to hit on a lot of their early picks because their talent's starting to get a little bit older. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, just got rid of Deebo Samuel. They're about to pay Brock Purdy a huge contract, it seems like. So they got to start getting some good players again to kind of help the new iteration of their team. So let's go Walter Nolan here. I like that fit. You talked me into it.
Man, you mentioned Purdy. I can't wait to make fun of them when they pay Brock Purdy. This is gonna be so great.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. But for this pick here, like, yeah, I mean, I think he's a little high, but I do think he's like a mid first, you know. I think some people I would still say Mason Graham's better because he has a higher floor, and you know they both are similar. It's just one was still better, and so Nolan just has a higher ceiling, but I do think Graham's better. But that's interesting there. Definitely good, makes sense because they need guys there. And then the Cowboys here at 12. I think if McMillan was here, this is his floor. I think he's going to the Cowboys. I do think they're just going to go receiver. I don't know. There hasn't been crazy reports, but like when you look at their team, like, yeah, they could also go, you know, running back. Like that's a probable issue for them. Safety, but you're not taking a safety here. And then, you know, defensive line potentially on the edge, but that really hasn't been a reported thing either. So I think I'm just going to go receiver, and the reports seem to be an in-home guy, so Matthew Golden it is. We'll have him go 12, moving up because of his speed for sure. I don't think he's the second best receiver. I personally am a little bit lower on him than probably other people. Some people might have him higher. I have him as like my 6th best receiver. I have him as like an early second-round pick, so I'm definitely much lower just because I feel like we're getting a little overboard with the speed. But he's a great athlete. Like, you know, it's objectively true, and he did show a lot of tough catches last year, which is good, but super inconsistent route runner. Hands are fine, but of receivers picked in the first round, like it's below average, and he will have the worst hands of anyone that's picked in the first round or even the early second, like Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. Those guys are better at that. So you draft the speed, you know, but I like good route runners, and he's not that, so that's why I have him a little lower. But for Dallas, you know, seems like a guy they would want anyways, so maybe I'm wrong. We'll see the impact he has. I think obviously he can still be good, but I think I prefer other guys ahead. But speed talks for some teams. We've seen it work, we've seen it not, so that's probably what's going to happen, even though we haven't had a lot of reports about it. It just seems like that's kind of a consensus thing if McMillan's not there.
Yeah, receiver, running back has been to the Cowboys a lot.
Or Hampton, one of those two.
Another team that you never really know what Jerry and that organization is thinking. I like Golden. I think he's a good complement to what CeeDee Lamb brings. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Cowboys, they just need some more weapons. I mean, they have CeeDee Lamb, and that's really about it.
No. And you can't. I mean, Dak is just he's paid.
He's not going to be the guy that carries your offense.
Not what he is. Exactly. So he needs help objectively because he's just not that. He's not Josh Allen. Like, you know. So
I think going Golden or, you know, whoever, as long as they're a weapon on offense, makes a lot of sense. But now at number 13, my Miami Dolphins here. I think this again. I've seen a couple of things on Twitter, the old X channels of people saying this could be a really intriguing spot because there's just so many. If you just look at the Dolphins roster, you just Googled it right now. There's just so many holes. There's so many places the Dolphins could
more
go.
Than you would think, to be honest. More holes than you would think for a team that you thought, I mean, was just really good like a year ago.
Yeah, but the offensive line could use help. The interior of the defensive line might be bottom 5 in the league. The secondary is atrocious now. I mean, they signed like 2 vet minimum safeties to basically start. And then Jalen Ramsey might be out of the door, so their 2 boundary cornerbacks might be Cam Smith and Cater. I mean, it's rough. So the Dolphins could go a lot of different directions here. I was thinking maybe about a trade back, but I don't really know who would be coming up here. I was thinking maybe have the Chargers come up for a tight end, but if they're still on the board here, I think they would feel pretty confident that one of them will still be on the board at number 22. So I don't think I want to do that. There has been a lot of ties to both of the Texas players, Jahdae Barron and Calvin Banks Jr. I would think take Barron here, Kelvin Banks, I'm not as high on him. I think he can be a good player. I mean, he reminds me a lot of who the Dolphins drafted in 2020 with one of their first round picks. They drafted Austin Jackson, and just as a prospect, they're very similar. They're similar size. They're really known for kind of their good movement skills. Jackson, I think, was a little bit more raw and developmental, and he didn't come from an SEC school, so Banks has a leg up there. But I don't know if I ever see Banks as just some great, just top end tackle, and I just think at number 13, that's just a little bit rich to take him here. But obviously, the Dolphins' offensive line has been one of the worst in the league for years now. If you want to pour more resources into it, I'm not going to be upset about it. But personally, I just don't love Banks here. And I mean, I can point to the press conference with the Dolphins GM, Chris Greer. He said, Patrick Paul, who we spent a second-round pick on last year, he's going to get the first shot at left tackle. So, again, Banks, he does have the flexibility to play one of the guard spots. But we signed James Daniels as one of those. So, I don't know. I do think Kelvin Banks can fit in here. I'm not as big a fan of him as some people are. So I'm going to go Jahdae Barron out of Texas. I think Jalen Ramsey likely gets traded on draft night or shortly after. Dolphins need a lot of help in their secondary. Barron can play in the nickel. He can play safety. I think he can play boundary. Probably where I wouldn't have him play, but I mean, got the flexibility to play anywhere in the secondary. You mentioned so many players already. Brian Branch, you mentioned Cooper DeJean. Barron is very similar to all those players. He was a huge part of that Texas defense last year. Jim Thorpe winner. I'm a really big fan of Barron. I think he could be just another, cut from the same cloth of those guys. So I'm going to have Barron go here. And I know you're going to get a little upset with me for not having an offensive lineman go here because I just don't love taking it. But I'm going to go Barron. I like Barron. I like Barron.
No, yeah, this is definitely a Dolphins fan pick for sure. But I mean, I think he's better. Like, he's a better player. Again, I really like him. I meant to have him in like my studs video, but I assumed everyone already knew he was a stud, so I didn't really dive too much into him. But I think like for this team, like, he's better. It's just, it seems like they're I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like they're probably gonna go tackle. Like, and I'm not saying it's stupid to do, it's just, it's hard because of the guys who are on the board. But like, I think again, Barron is better, but just think objectively, like, their situation. Like, I think Ramsey, yeah, he might be actually gone, and their cornerback room does, kind of, it's not ideal.
It's got to be one of the worst
gone.
in the league. Yeah,
not ideal with him gone. But Kader Kohu has kind of played slot most of the year, so you'd be looking more like a Will Johnson, if they have that. But then your O-line is like Austin Jackson, who had his first like solid year, and he was okay, and also didn't play the whole year. Patrick Paul, second round pick last year, started a few games, sucked ass. James Daniels, pretty good starter, only played 4 games last year. Liam Eichenberg sucks, and then Aaron Brewer is good. So it's like, man, this is tough. And Banks is kind of like Elijah Vera Tucker. That's like a comp, I don't know. Will he be as good, worse? Who knows? Like you said, he's been pretty split, like, in terms of some guys have him much lower. Like, I've seen some rankings. PFF, what did they have him at? Like, they had him at 31 at some point. They have him at 22 now, but I've seen other guys have him at 30. Some of them have him in the top. He's probably going to go high, though. That's what it seems the report is. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, if he goes there. But Barron, it's probably Banks or Barron, so it's not like it's a dumb pick or anything. Or I mean, Will Johnson, Banks, or Barron, probably one of those.
I'm scared off by Will Johnson though, with the all his injury reports.
But he's probably going to go high just because of his size, like teams like that. So I think there's a corner later on that is, at Iowa State that I really love that they could just go ahead and grab. That's similar to Will Johnson, but, healthy. But either way, this is more predictive, obviously. And then we get the Colts here, which, pretty simple with how this board fell. Tyler Warren, thank you very much. If Tyler Warren goes early, I think this is probably just going to be Loveland, to be honest. I think both these guys are great here. They have a few positions they could go, but I kind of think tight end's the best one that they should go. Their tight end room sucks, and I think tight end is big for quarterbacks that are developing, in my opinion, because it's a nice safety blanket to try and use. And Loveland is a good tight end, but he's almost more of a receiver than tight end. Warren's your real tight end, so like your George Kittle type. So Warren, I think, would be really good for them. They'd love that. Pretty simple there. Again, if he goes higher, the Jets and the Bears would be the ones I would look at. I could have picked him to the Bears, I understand. But I think the positional value, they might want more there. But I do think Tyler Warren is like a blue chipper. I think he's like the McMillan. I mean, if you like McMillan, some people have him lower, but the McMillan Genty tier of like potential blue chip, like athletic offense positions, like I think he's up there. So 14, awesome value for them. They're probably super happy.
Yeah, I like Tyler Warren a lot too. One of my favorite players in college football last year, just doing it all for Penn State's offense, kind of just carrying them because they didn't have many weapons on the outside. But the Falcons here at 15, I'm going to need you to talk me out of taking a skill position player here for the Falcons because they, every single year, what do? We always say they need to take a pass rusher, they need to take something on the defensive line, and then they take just a random obscure player that we just didn't even foresee for the Falcons.
I mean, I guess, for the first round, they don't take obscure, but they take crazy off. I mean, but I mean, to be fair,
I guess I'm just talking a little bit more about
Drake London, Bijan. I mean, Pitts has been super disappointing. It's just last year, absurd first round. Like, first round is like, oh my gosh, but maybe it works out for them because of the positional value. But then their second and third and fourth, I hated the Falcons, like, ended the draft last year. And funny enough, it was a lot of defensive line guys. I just didn't like the value. So, and they still need them. So, shocker. Maybe that wasn't great back half anyways. But
I just feel like they refuse to invest in the defensive line.
I haven't heard crazy reports, but I mean, they have to at some, like, oh my God, they have to at some point. If the world where they don't, though, what would they do?
I think they would take they'd take another receiver. Yeah, I think they take somebody like Luther Bird and pair him with
Ibuka, because they don't have they have Raymond McLeod as their slot or whatever. Maybe that'd be kind of crazy. If you want to do a funny whatever, like, I don't really care. That'd be pretty hilarious. If I was doing edge, I would have a few guys in mind, and you could ask me. But if you want to do a funny skills position, you could have them, go a Burden, go an Ibuka, or say that they want to run a 2 tight end lineup, or they hate Pitts and go Colston Loveland.
I'm gonna assume that they finally do the right thing here and go on the defensive line. I'm gonna go Mike Green though, out of Marshall. I kind of like his fit in Atlanta and that scheme that they're going to be running. And Green is interesting. I compare him a lot to, I think he's very similar to James Pierce Jr. in terms of just skill set. Led the country in sacks last year, obviously at Marshall, so a tiny, bit of grain of salt there. But he's just a speed rusher off the edge. He's undersized, so he's not going to be great in the run game. But I think what Raheem Morris will have him do is be kind of what you were saying with Jalen Walker, kind of move him around, able to have him been on the edge and just maximize his speed in that scheme. And so I think Atlanta, they just kind of need a piece to play with on their defense. And I think Mike Green can be that kind of guy. I think he also was pretty good in the offseason programs. That's kind of where his stock kind of rose, like at the I don't know which one it was. Maybe like the Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl.
Bowl.
He was good. So I think that's kind of what helped his stock out a lot, because, like, man, this guy had over 20 sacks last year, but it wasn't against the greatest competition. But then he goes to the Senior Bowl against some of the other top players in the class. He looked pretty good, and then that's okay. This guy might be legit. So I'm gonna have Mike Green here go to the Falcons and finally address their defensive line and pass rushing unit.
Yeah, I love Mike Green. He's like a top 10 player for me. I think he's a stud. I think he's like Josh Allen-esque on the D-line. I think he's super good. This would be awesome for them. It seems, though, like Mike Green is like obviously the stuff we've had here, reports are still D-line, but I've seen some Shamar Stewart in terms of like going higher, just because of his athletic profile. So Shamar Stewart could also be the pick there. I already had that the other one, so glad we're mixing it up here at 16, or I mean at 15, and then the Cardinals at 16. I've no like they could do anything. I mean, the Cardinals literally could do absolutely anything. Like they don't care. They don't play by the rules. They do whatever. So just kind of looking at it objectively, I think we can look at, okay, well, what do they need? They honestly don't need as much as you would think, you know? I think defensive interior is one that is definitely something I had written down. It's just hard to really find someone that fits that. Or corner. Like outside corner, I think Will Johnson would be like an ideal pick for them, for what they like there. And I think I might go him. Or the other one that I'm looking at is Shamar Stewart, because they can use him in multiple different spots, and that would be someone that I think they would probably really like. So, hard to really pick which one, just for the sake of kind of interesting stuff, because I already had Will Johnson in one. I'm gonna go Shamar Stewart in the other, because I think it seems like he's gonna go high. Seems like he is, because of his athletic profile, and Cardinals like those versatile guys. I know they did take one last year in the later round out of Missouri. Totally blanking on his name. Can't remember.
Darius Robinson, I think.
He was like, Darius Robinson. He was like a 4-3 defensive tackle, a 3-4 defensive end, and he can move around. He didn't play a lot though. Shamar Stewart's similar there, but their D-line, like, if they added a ton of whatever, like, none of them are stopping you from taking Stewart. Like, you might look at their depth chart and be like, Stone, they have like so many there. None of those guys are going to stop you from taking them if you really like them, and they like athletes for sure. So if it's not Stewart, Will Johnson falling, it seems like that's been a connection because they want their lengthy outside corner. So I'm not going to die on the pick or anything. Could be Will, but we'll go Stewart here. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, the Bengals at 17, I think it's got to be defense. I mean, they paid both the receivers. They got Joe Burrow. Calvin Banks maybe piques their interest here. They want to get a versatile piece on their O-line to maybe play guard and be a swing tackle, and one of their guys potentially gets hurt. But I think I want to go defense here, and I like Malachi Starks. I like Jihad Campbell here. Even like maybe Kenneth Grant as somebody to help on the interior. But I'm going to go Jihad Campbell here, and he's one of my favorite players in this draft. I would even have him kind of in that blue chip player kind of range. I think he's really, really good. And he's actually had an interesting kind of career arc as well, because when he got to Alabama, he started as an edge rusher. Within the last 2 years, he's been playing off-ball linebacker for him, and he's been really productive. One of the best players in Alabama's defense. He's like over 6'3", over 240 pounds, and he can fly. I think he ran like a 4.5 at the 40-yard dash. So he's a physical freak, and he's great against the run. He's got some development to do in terms of pass coverage, but I think that's going to come with him because, like I said, he's only been playing the position for 2 years now. So I think that is something that he will be able to fix because he's got the athleticism and the physical traits to kind of figure that out. But against the run, in quarterback spies, blitzing the quarterback, he's going to be ridiculous right from day one. And I think the Bengals, they kind of just need some more speed on their defense. That was a problem they had last year. And if you just put him in the middle of your defense, let him kind of just be the captain of your defense for the next decade, I think you can't have much of a better pick here at 17. He does have, I think, a shoulder injury, which I think he might have tore his labrum or something in his shoulder. So maybe that causes him to drop a little bit. But I think Campbell's going to be a really, really good player.
Yeah, I don't really know where he's going to go. It's kind of hard to pick. Like, I think Buccaneers at 19 makes sense, but that could be a trade down spot, to be honest. So I don't know. It's really weird around here. I think he would replace Jermaine Pratt, who's 30, NC State legend Jermaine Pratt, because he's older and he's a strong side 4-3 linebacker. So that's what Campbell would be. And I think they could get safety later. I think edge would be the biggest thing. Like maybe if they could look at a James Pierce, a Donovan Zaraku. I think they could look at some of those guys. I know that a lot of the Texas A&M guys have been getting first-round love. Nick Scorton been getting a lot of first-round love, so could be any of those. But Campbell's really good. I agree. I love him there. Seahawks are a trade-down candidate, but I think they're probably just going to stick and pick Gray Zabel. Easiest pick for me, to be honest. Easy match. Really like him. I think he's super good. Some people think he's too high at 18. I think that's perfect. I actually do have him as a mid-first round pick. I think he's a stud. He's like maybe they're not the same type, but he's like a Joe Thuney. Like, I think he's a really good guard, really good center, could play. Like, but he could also play tackle if you need it. But he's not going to start at tackle. He'd be a guard. And the Seahawks need some kind of offensive lineman because they don't really have a ton, especially on the interior, because the Seahawks don't really believe in drafting guards, which,
they're basically the Falcons.
Get them later.
They're the Falcons, but for offensive line instead of the
literally.
line.
That's exactly what they are. But in this world, we're assuming both of them have kind of run their course and are like, all right, maybe we actually have to do it now because it fits. So Gray Zabel, pretty easy for me. I kind of like that to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I agreed on all points. He's another guy that during the kind of off-season program stuff, coming from a smaller school, kind of proved that he was for real as well during those. But 19 for the Buccaneers. I think I want to go with a versatile player that can kind of move around and has great athleticism. It's going to be James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I kind of like his fit in Todd Bowles' defense because what does he like to do more than like any kind of defense in the league? It's blitz. And James Pierce Jr., his motto and what he likes to do is get after the quarterback. And he's going to do that with his speed and athleticism off the edge. So I think you could have him come on some things like stunts, even just exotic blitzes, maybe even have him drop back in coverage a little bit, doing kind of that disguising defense. I think he fits that prototype as somebody that does have the athleticism and movement skills to be able to do that. So I like his fit in Tampa Bay. I also do think somebody in the secondary, whether it's a safety, maybe Malachi Starks, maybe a corner, makes sense. I do agree that Jahad Campbell would be a good fit here, but the thing about the linebacking class is like outside of Campbell, none of these guys are going to sniff going in the first round. So I think if that's the case and Campbell's off the board, I think you get somebody that has, he's going to primarily play edge for you, but he does have some flexibility with his athleticism to do a couple other things on your defense. So I'm going to go James Pierce here to Tampa Bay. And I do want to point out with him and Mike Green, those are two more guys that there's been some maybe there's some off the field stuff, character stuff there. Again, I don't think we'll really know any of that stuff until maybe after the draft, if we see them fall and then Schefter or some reporter
or the
comes
night
on.
of the draft, like Laramie Tunsil when he had that
Good point.
absurd bong
Yeah,
crap
yeah.
happen. Mike Green has this sexual assault stuff he's actually talked about, and then Pierce, it seems like people just say he doesn't care at all. So maybe that gets amplified. I don't know.
So yeah, exactly. So who knows if that has these guys drop at all? But we're kind of going in the lens where it's probably not going to impact their stock that much. I think it's kind of the range where we'll see them go. But James Pierce to Tampa Bay, and now another NFC South team up on the board here.
Yeah, I think Buccaneers probably going to go edge. Pierce is definitely worth that pick, maybe even a little higher, just, again, falling because of effort concerns and character stuff in the building. But in this world where the Saints trade down and they're at 20...
Is it a quarterback spot?
I think...
Quarterback spot?
It could be, yeah. If it is, I'm telling you, they don't like Shedeur Sanders.
I saw those.
They don't.
Reports.
They like Jackson Dart. And that's why there's a world where Dart could go higher if, again, this exact pick happens, because he's not going at 9. No one's going at 9. No quarterback is going at 9. That seems to be the report. Maybe that's wrong, but that seems to be what it is. And I think both the Saints and the Giants want to take someone and then trade up to get someone. But then you're in a weird spot here where if we go here and the Giants haven't decided to trade up, if they would have done that, it probably would have been with the Seahawks, maybe the Buccaneers, maybe the Falcons for Shedeur Sanders, because that could be something that they could do. I think in that hypothetical world, they would do that. So maybe you could just imagine that. And then with, here at 20, I think, if I'm just thinking as a GM right here, we just traded back. we didn't have specifics in the trade, but we got some stuff for trading back. We still want a good player. Like, we still want a really good player in the class, and we still might want a quarterback. The Steelers at 21, I'm not trying to make a pick for you, but if the Giants don't trade up for Shedeur Sanders, his floor is 21. I really don't think he's going past them if he's on the board. And so if I'm the Saints, I'm like, well, we like Dart better. The Steelers like Sanders better. Let's just take a guy we really need that's good and then maybe trade back up for someone and snag him there. And so in this world, I think they, by doing this, get a guy that they really like, that they need, and that's Kenneth Grant, because they really need defensive interior players. Their defensive interior absolutely sucks. Nathan Shepard, Devon Godshaw, Brian Brzee has been a gigantic bust. It's only been 2 years, so maybe I'm being premature, but he has sucked, and he's played a ton, so gotten a lot of experience already. He'll be 24, which is a little bit older, and I don't think you should say, oh no, let's not take him because we have Brian Brzee and he's going to develop. Like, you just don't know. So I think they need to improve that. Again, could be someone else for sure. Could be quarterback, but just I don't know if you get my thinking, but they like Dart better. Seems like they still wanted, both these teams, the Giants and the Saints, who might take quarterbacks, want to take someone and then get their quarterback second. And then the team that they're ahead, the Steelers, they like Shedeur Sanders. So if Shedeur Sanders is gone here, then sure, we'll take Dart here if they trade down. But if not, either way, I'd say why not? Why do you have to take him here when the Steelers won't take him and you could just trade back up if you want? Maybe we'll do that. But in that case, I think Kenneth Grant would make a lot of sense here. Really good interior force. Inconsistent from like play to play, but game to game seems really consistent. Just way more upside as a good run defender / pass rusher. Like you said, some people like him better than Mason Graham. I don't, but I still think he's really good. This is around where he should go. So that's kind of my thinking. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely that would be a good thought process. Does Mickey Loomis have that foresight?
Probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but I do think that would make sense for the Saints to do that there. And yeah, Kenneth Grant, I think I'm higher on him than consensus. I think it's just really rare to find people at his size that has kind of the athletic traits that he has. So I think definitely top 20 kind of range makes sense for him. I think right away will be a good run stopper, but where he's going to reach his ceiling and be worth a first round pick is if he can be developed as a pass rusher. So that's going to be interesting to watch there in New Orleans. But 21 for the Steelers, you kind of hinted at it. I guess we'll finally have Shedeur Sanders go off the board here. I do think the Steelers, I don't know what they're going to do. The whole thing with Aaron Rodgers, like, are they going to get him? Does that impact their decision at all? Like,
yeah, so I think a report came out saying they're, through this draft process, not saying they're going to draft 2 of them, but they are going to add 2 more quarterbacks is their ideal scenario. And that Rodgers doesn't impact their draft scenario. So they could still sign Rodgers and draft Shedeur Sanders. That's what they had said.
I did see that report
fake,
too.
But
the thing, only my question for them with that would be is like, what if Aaron Rodgers is like, if you take somebody in the first round and there's going to be some fire under me. Like I'm not
done.
Yeah, I'm not playing for you.
I mean, this happened before, and he won 2 MVPs.
Yeah, but I think he was set in stone there. I mean, he was already kind of under contract and whatnot. So I don't know. I just think that's an interesting development. Is kind of what Rodgers and Steelers are. But I do agree at some point they would draft a quarterback. I just think if Rodgers was like, yeah, I'm coming. If you spend that first round pick, I'm just going to retire. If that maybe makes them take a running back or somebody else here, and then once we get to the day 2, day 3, take some of those guys. But who knows? I still think Sanders here is an interesting fit again because I think Sanders would be better suited to go to like a dome or warm weather team because, I mean, kind of similar to some of the guys like even if you talk about the Dolphins again, like Tua. He with his arm strength and not being like the most physically gifted player, when you go out into the inclement weather, it's not really where you want to have him playing because he doesn't have the capabilities to cut through the wind, play in the snow and the rain. And in Pittsburgh, you're going to be doing that, at least probably 4 to 5 games a year, because then you also got to go to Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. So I don't know if I love that fit for Shedeur and Pittsburgh. I mean, I do think he's got a better arm and physical talent than Tua. I don't want people to think I'm calling them the same there. I'm just using him as an example as a guy that doesn't have great physical talent, which Shedeur does not. That I don't know if playing in the AFC North would be the best fit for him. But nonetheless, the Steelers, they do need a quarterback. I think the Skylar Thompson and Mason Rudolph, 2 quarterbacks on their team right now. So they're gonna have to add. They're gonna
Dolphins
have to
legend.
Dolphins legend Skylar Thompson, but they're gonna have to add a couple more quarterbacks, like you said. Will it be in the first round? Who knows? But we'll end the Shedeur slide here at 21.
Yeah. Again, I think if you want to go, bet stuff. I already did. If you think about it, I think the only 2 teams that might get him are the Giants or Steelers, and it would be the Giants trading ahead of the Steelers. So
when have I got a mystery team for you? I got a mystery team.
Who do you think?
You should scroll up a little bit and see the number 13. Just keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders is in Miami.
Just keep an eye on it.
The fan isn't running the team. We still have what's his name that you hate? Who's the GM?
Chris Greer, man.
Chris Greer going hard, going strong, going to be there forever. So looks good in Miami.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's either a Giant with a trade up, specifically, again, Buccaneers, Seahawks, or Falcons. That's what I think. And then if that happens, I think that the real trigger is the Saints, because do the Saints trade ahead of the Steelers? Not in this scenario where they trade down but are still ahead of the Steelers. If they stay at 9, take whoever, the Giants trade up ahead of the Steelers and take Shedeur Sanders. Do the Saints trade up ahead of the Steelers, or maybe with the Steelers, to take Jackson Dart? Because that's the real big question for me, is if Sanders is not there, we already know the floor is Pittsburgh. They like him. He could go there for sure. If he's not, though, and the Giants are like, we are split in the room on picking him, and I think I could do a mock of like picturing that. I did at the end of my video. I kind of went through, hey, if this happens, then do the Steelers like Dart? And do the Steelers like Dart enough to take him and force the Saints to trade up? Or maybe the Saints don't even get him. So I think, there's the only world where I think we have all teams that might take a quarterback get one early is if he falls here, the Saints get Dart, and then the Giants take Milroe, because apparently the Giants really like Milroe and they've met with him a lot and they want him to maybe be a developmental guy. If they maybe think Sanders is maybe not even as good as right now the guys they already have, there could be some thinking there. But it would be staying at 34 and taking Milroe, maybe trading up a little bit, getting a fifth year option, and then Tyler Shuck to the Browns. Seems like that might happen because he's the most NFL ready guy in terms of just what he is, his age. He's really weird and interesting. Maybe we could talk about him later at the end of the draft, but that'd be kind of the QB scenario there. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's Giants or Steelers for me, and if Giants trade up, then do the Steelers like Dart enough? But in this case, we'll have him go there, and then our crazy Denver trade, which Denver wants to be aggressive. They want running backs. That's kind of interesting. I like it. If Genty falls, that was good thinking from Mathis there. But if we have a board here with the Chargers, I think it's Colson Loveland pretty easily. They need tight end from Michigan. They love him. Boom, done, simple. Like, he'll fit perfectly. I think Chargers are Loveland or Grant. They luckily need both those players in terms of their position, and they're both perfectly from Michigan. So it seems like a pretty easy pick there.
Yeah, that's been a great fit as well, that I've had, multiple mocks. Jim Harbaugh recruited Loveland, knows him really well. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. The Packers at 23, I hate mocking for the Packers because I just feel like they're just such a weird team to mock for. Like, you never can.
I'll tell you, there's a guy whose floor is probably the Packers right now.
Well, I was thinking, what I was thinking a little bit interesting for the Packers. I think they need help getting after the passer. And if you look at their history, they look at three things when evaluating first round edge players. It's height, weight, and speed. And so when I look at those three things and I kind of look at the board and see who's here, I'm actually going to go with Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. So I know you mentioned a little bit earlier that he's been a guy that's been rising a little bit, but I think he's got the size that the Packers would want. I think he's kind of got that prototypical athleticism as well. And I don't know. I don't think I've had this fit, but I actually kind of like it. He's versatile where he can play in their defense and maybe even line up on the interior at times. But I just think this would be a good fit and kind of fit the theme of what the Packers like to draft in the first round.
Yeah, like if they did this, would you really be surprised? You know, like
No.
it is such a Packers, such a Packers pick. You know, like a guy who's kind of sneaking around. Like, is he a first round caliber guy? We don't really know. The Packers always they do like those kind of guys, but they always either like totally nail a pick. Yeah. Or just like a total horrendous pick. It's like every other pick, I feel.
It's like Rashawn Gary versus Lucas Van Ness. Those are two very similar guys where you're like, okay, this guy's either going to be a great player or not good. And Rashawn Gary's developed really well, and then Lucas Van Ness has been kind of a bust so far for them. So I think, again, they kind of take a similar type of prospect to those guys. And I don't know, I just kind of thought of that on the fly. I kind of like Gordon to Green Bay.
Then who do I got? The Vikings. Kind of hard because I feel like if he's there, they might just like taking him in Will Johnson. But at the same time, I also have really liked and preferred Derek Harmon to them. But in our world of where we're kind of looking at here, I think the Giants also really like Dart. I think that needs to be known. The Giants like him. It's the Saints that don't really like Sanders, but the Giants like both. They do.
They're desperate.
So I think it's just a fight, honestly, to the Vikings, who have 4 picks in the draft. That's right, 4 of them. The next pick from 24 is 97. So they seem like a pretty clear trade down team to me, and they rumored to. So honestly, I'm just looking at who is going to pony up enough to trade up. And so I have my opinion, but let me hear your thoughts if you have a preference or opinion, since it's your mocking channel, what your thoughts are there, because I'm pretty set on doing a trade back. Just who are you thinking?
I like the trade back. I think you could make the case because we technically gave the Saints more picks because they traded back from 20. So maybe, I mean, it could be more realistic for them to package those together to move back into the first. But I think I do like the idea of the Giants maybe moving up for somebody. I mean, we could technically have maybe even Milroe, so like another quarterback, sneak in here. I mean, theoretically we could. But I think if I had to pick one, maybe we could do the Giants for now, move up to 24. Just say that they get really desperate.
In my other mock, I had the Saints moving up for Dart, but then I had another world where the Giants already move up for Sanders, and then the Saints could just get Dart anyways, but maybe the Steelers want Dart. The Steelers, I think, again, going back to them, just the quarterback stuff, if it's not Sanders or Dart, then maybe a running back on it. They could just sit and go Hampton. Like, I could see them doing that, because they need running back, so that could happen there. But in this case, I think the Giants also something to keep in mind, like their regime, this is it. So, they could say, look, we don't give a shit. We're just going to trade our first next year. Like, it's not our problem. I think that could be kind of a thing that they could do and everything. I think maybe the Vikings would want more current picks. So, maybe the Giants are like, hey, we don't really want that. We want to trade next year's picks. And then maybe the maybe the Saints would prefer this year's picks. And so maybe this Vikings would just accept the Saints deal. Like, I don't know. Those are just kind of scenarios to think about. But in this case, we could have the Giants trade up because it's still very much a possibility. Here, you can go take 99 or something like that, 105, probably a first or second next year or something like that. To maybe not a first, probably, but a second, maybe some good picks in this year's draft. And they go ahead and take Jackson Dart. That's who it would be. It seems, I don't know, there's been like hey, he's not a first-round pick. He's probably going to fall out. No, he's for sure a first-round pick. I think it's more likely that he is. I don't want to fall into, like, the 2022 draft thing where, I mean, going in, it was like, okay, Sam Howell is a first-round pick. Matt Corral is a first-round pick. Malik Willis is a first-round pick. And Kenny Pickett, when it was literally just Kenny Pickett, So it's weird to fall into that. But I do kind of think Dart probably is just because of the need. And I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. I really don't. I think he is a good developmental like dart throw. For the Giants, like I think for them, if these guys were lasting longer, it would make more sense. But since they're on the last year, like I don't think Dart's going to come in and be better than Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. He may be as good as Jameis Winston. That's just my opinion. So kind of hard there, but he's got the best arm talent, I think, in terms of these top tier guys. But he very much varied his consistency. Doesn't really know in terms of like making reads, reading the defense. That's something he didn't do a lot. But he sits in the pocket. He takes some hits when he throws. Is not afraid of that. He's a good runner too, much better than Sanders, and that might be what Brian Daboll prefers, anyways. So I think that could be something that makes sense there. But again, I think Dart is a Giant, a Steeler, or a Saint. And if I had to bet, I would say he's more likely a Saint or a Giant than a Steeler. But that my thinking, one of those three teams probably going to get or have to fight over these two quarterbacks. And then, like you said, Milrow's kind of the odd man out there. But I don't think the Saints would get Milrow. That's the only thing. I don't think they would get Milrow. So if we go here, the Saints might just be like, all right, we'll punt on it this year. Maybe take a Will Howard or something like that later down the board.
Yeah, I actually like Jackson Dart. There's always like a couple of prospects. I mean, really, especially quarterbacks that if you just go like on Twitter or just social media, like 90% of people just don't like. And I feel like this year that's kind of Jackson Dart. And I would say, yeah, like Jackson Dart is, nobody likes him. I do. And the reason is, I mean, you kind of mentioned it. He's probably got the best arm talent as some of these top guys going here. And yeah, he didn't run a good system in Mississippi. Lane Kiffin makes it really easy on his quarterbacks, just kind of getting it to your first read. You don't really have to process a lot. But if you're just drafting kind of a player for his physical talent, which Dart, he's got a good arm, he can play off script, he can run. I don't think it's crazy to say Dart is more talented than Sanders and is even more talented than Cam Ward, like just as pure, just talented based players, like physical attribute. So if you can develop him and learns how to play the quarterback position a little bit more and how to process things, I don't hate taking Jackson Dart in the first round. But again, he's a boomer bust player. If he does not get that development on how to read defenses and how to actually develop some of those more quarterback characteristics, yeah, he's not going to be, a great player. But we've also seen at some times of players getting drafted that in college they don't run a pro style offense, but we don't know if they actually can or not. So maybe Dart, he surprises everybody and he can do that, fairly early on. I mean, who knows? But I do think Jackson Dart can be a really good quarterback. It just kind of depends on situation, as it does for really every quarterback.
I mean, for sure, maybe. Like, I'm not trying to put him down. I do think the running helps a lot. I think that helps be a big separator. I think for him, though, it's very unfortunate because you're either going to go to the Saints, who Derek Carr seems like he doesn't give a crap about being there and wants to get out. Maybe that's the best scenario of realistic ones for him. But you'd have to start right away, and your offensive line, unless they take Membu and then trade back up for him, still is kind of And is Olave even healthy? I have no idea. What's your other weapons? The Giants, who we have now, which would be good in theory, but then you might have a brand new coach and quarterback who didn't pick you, and maybe they don't like you. Who knows? If the Giants suck, or the Steelers, which that'd be pretty cool. But do they develop quarterbacks? I don't really know. Can this offense do that? It's kind of weird. I think the Rams would be super cool, but I don't think they would do that.
I was saying if he went to the Rams, I could really see Dart being really, really awesome. If he just sat behind Stafford for a couple years, McVay developed him, I think that could be really fun. But yeah, I don't think they would do it either. But the Texans here at 25, I'm between two offensive linemen, Calvin Banks Jr. or Josh Simmons. I agree with you that Simmons is the better pure tackle, and I've said it multiple times on the channel. If he didn't get hurt, we could be talking about him being like a top 10 pick because his tape early in the season for Ohio State was elite. It is worth mentioning that a lot of the teams he was playing, I mean, it was kind of like their non-conference schedule. So, I mean, it wasn't great competition, but anytime, I'm going to pull it up here, he had 158 pass block reps, and he didn't allow a sack, he didn't allow a hit, and he only allowed one hurry. That's elite. And he looked really, really good in a short stint, but then he suffered a knee injury. So obviously he's going to lower his stock a bit. So I'm kind of inclined to go Kelvin Banks Jr. here, also because I think I like his fit more on the interior. Has a little bit more flexibility because of his movement skills. So I'm going to have him go here. I'm going to keep him in the state of Texas. I do understand if you would prefer Josh Simmons here, but I just like the versatility of Banks more. And they actually also need like a day one guaranteed starter. We don't know how Simmons is going to be with the timeline, if he's going to be ready. I think he probably will be. I think it was like week 5 or 6 maybe he got hurt against Oregon. I don't know what week that was for the Buckeyes, but I think he should be probably ready to go, but it's not like a 100% guarantee. For Kelvin Banks, he's going to be healthy, ready to go, and he can play guard, he can play tackle. And the Texans, they just need help on the offensive line. So I think the versatility kind of set me apart here. So I'm going to have Banks go to Houston.
Yeah, no, I think Simmons is better, but it does make sense for them because, like you said, they need someone to start right now. I mean, Simmons can, but you don't want to rush him.
Yeah.
And, their starting tackle looks like it's Blake Fisher, who kind of similar to the guys, you had. What's Patrick Paul, or what's his name?
Yeah, Patrick Paul.
Yeah, from Houston, like second-round pick, sucked ass in the beginning. But
just a big unknown.
Maybe they get better.
A big unknown.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they get better, because it's the first year. So, but again, it just depends on who's there. And in these guys' case, I think with the talent that's there, they would be willing to do it, even though they got Cam Robinson, who's just going to start on the other side. Trent Brown is good when he plays, but he just gets hurt all the time. And then their interior is fine, but could also use help. So by taking Banks, you maybe fill both of those potentially. So, or at least one of them, for whoever's healthy and whoever's not. So, yeah, it makes sense. And then with the Rams here, I think, honestly, I already did it in mind, so I don't want to do it here, but I just want to tell you. I think this could be a Chiefs trade up with the Rams for an offensive lineman with Simmons still being there. I think that could still be a thing.
Yeah.
I kind of had them trade up with the Vikings from 31 to 24 to go ahead of the Texans and get Josh Simmons. And then I had the Texans taking Josh Connerly, who's like the barely a first-round pick. And even then, I don't love him. So just in the NFL's eyes, he's a barely a first-round pick. In terms of the Rams here, there's like a lot of different stuff you could go. Honestly, the one that is interesting that's getting a lot of love is Mason Taylor. Wow. Mason Taylor being a first-round pick is getting a ton of love. In the world that we've created, though, I'm going to go Will Johnson because in the NFL, I feel like they're probably not going to pass him up. Even then, like, I'm not the biggest fan, but this is pretty low objectively for him. I think the Packers realistically could be a spot for him for sure. But I do have him as like a late first round pick. That's kind of what I have. I mean, his story is similar to Derek Stingley. Like 2022, he was amazing. He was starting as a true freshman. Was good kind of the year after that. And then last year got injured, but was lesser. He wasn't bad, but he was not first round pick caliber whatsoever. And he has speed questions. He hasn't really run a lot. And some teams are like, yeah, he's just not as fast, but his size and length are extremely ideal. But he's, he's got production. He showed amazing stuff like Derek Stingley did. It's just Derek Stingley was a better athlete. And Will Johnson, like, I think his long speed is kind of a concern, which, like, I liked him in the draft last year, but maybe I should have been lower with Terrion Arnold, who's a Lion who, was good as a prospect, but struggled last year because of his speed. That was kind of a concern, and he was outside corner the whole time. So I think you're going to have to play him a little farther off than you would hope, but that doesn't mean he can't succeed, because we've seen guys like that succeed, like James Bradbury, when James Bradbury was really good with the Giants, former Panther who, I don't know, left the Panthers and decided to actually be good, so that was cool. But, maybe a little bit of a slower J.C. Horn is like his potential. I'm just not sure where he's going to go. He has man traits, but he might be better as like an outside zone corner, so kind of hard to figure out, a bit risky, but he was amazing for, his freshman year, so clearly he's talented. Technically, he's very sound, so that's why he's going to go high, and the Rams kind of need someone there. But like I said, Mason Taylor's gotten a lot of love, and other than that, I mean, could see a few guys here. I personally really like Siobhan Ravel out of ECU, really like him, so I could see him going here in the first round as well. But with Will Johnson falling, we'll go him at 26.
Yeah, I really like Will Johnson as well. He was seen as maybe a top 5 lock, I would say, before that past college football season started. I mean, he was really highly viewed, but had turf toe. He's had hamstring issues. Now there's a knee issue, and there's some people are saying like it shouldn't be a short-term problem, but may like hinder his longevity. So anytime you kind of hear that stuff, that's not great, and you're probably going to slip somewhere in the draft. I do like him, though, as a player, if he can just be healthy and on the field. I think, like what you said, he's probably more suited to be a zone cornerback than man because of his speed. Yeah, he skipped out on his 40-yard dash. He isn't the fastest guy on tape, definitely. I think he probably would have ran like a 4.5, probably 4.6. Like, it wouldn't have been a great 40. I think probably a 4.5 range. So I do get those concerns, and then when you combine his injuries and him not being able to even do a lot of the testing because of those injuries this kind of off season, it's going to mess up your stock. So I think we could see him in this range where he's in the 20s, although he, just pure talent and on the field may end up being one of the better players in the draft. So this could be one of those scenarios where we see a really good player fall, but then he turns out to be a steal. So I like the pick there for the Rams.
It's weird to say, but he feels more like a boomer bust because, again, he's similar. He could be J.C. Horn. Like, that's possible. But he could also be just, like, a bust. Like, totally, His 40 projected time was 4.56, which is the 25th percentile for corners. Not good. His shuttle was 4.33, 14th percentile. Abysmal. And even then, his arm length is not as long as you would think. It's just he's tall. The more I look at it, the more I don't want to pick him there. But I mean, he's already on a guy. I did my over and underrated players video, and he was a guy that was number 1 on that list. So maybe that's just my personal kind of opinion. But it seems like I want to be realistic to the NFL, and he will probably go higher. But I would take, if you're gonna go corner, which I do think they need a corner, I would take Trey Amos, Siobhan Ravel, or honestly, if you want to go someone earlier or wait later, Darian Porter, Benjamin Morrison. I like all those guys. Maybe not 100% better, but we'll have him go here anyways.
So
and then what are you up on 27?
Yeah, Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens.
So Baltimore is interesting. I've had some pass rushers go here because I think they need a lot of juice there. I mean, Kyle Van Noy has been their best pass rusher for a couple years now. So maybe Donovan Azaraku. I kind of like that fit, but I think they could use another DB. I think Malachi Starks is kind of like, he reminds me just as a Raven. Like he just seems like a Ravens type of player, but that's not like a huge need for them. And then I also, one time, I think I had them take Tyler Booker from Alabama to just fortify their offensive line, take who many see as the best pure guard in this draft. Do you kind of have a liking out of those three? If I gave you Tyler Booker, Malachi Starks, and Donovan Ezuraku, how do you kind of view that there?
I think Tyler Booker looks like he's like rumored to be a first, but his athletic testing was so bad that I think that may kick him out. And I think honestly, if you're looking for an interior guy, Donovan Jackson would be the one that would be a first round pick. So I would replace him with Donovan Jackson, and then Donovan Izaraku would definitely make sense because they want an edge. I think he would go ahead of. I don't think they would take Malachi Starks. I don't think that they would go with him just because of his athleticism. I think they like athletic guys back there, and he's not a bad athlete. He's just not as good as you would think. So honestly, if they were to take that, it would probably be someone like
Amanawari.
Yeah. But I still don't even know if they would do that. Maybe. So I would say probably Izaraku or Donovan Jackson.
Let's go with Izaraku here. He's a really polished player. Watched some cut-ups of him the other day, and he's got a really nice arsenal of just pass rush moves, getting after the passer. He's not the most physically gifted player. Like he doesn't have great size. His athleticism isn't off the charts, but he's just just a really good football player and somebody that can have an immediate impact. And the Ravens, who are in this Super Bowl window with Derrick Henry, kind of getting to the later years of his career, Lamar Jackson. He's not really getting old, but I mean he's making a lot of money, so kind of their time to strike while the iron's hot. They've been close the last couple of years. I think Izaraku's a piece that could just come in and provide some good pass rushing. That's what they need at this point. So we're gonna have this fit here.
You want to hear an interesting pick that I'm gonna just not even think about and do?
Can I predict what it will be?
Sure.
Luther Burden?
No.
Okay.
No, I will not do that. I think it has to be edge.
Oh, okay.
And in this
I was
world,
totally off that.
In this world, Izaraku's gone. Scorton is surprisingly gone. That would be one I could see them taking. Pierce is gone. And then, I think with their front, it's hard to predict exactly who would go. Landon Jackson is like a height, weight, speed freak and crazy, and that could be one that's there. But I don't know if have you seen that video where he just looks like a total pussy, like hitting the, drill that he did like back when he was in, I don't know, high school or whatever. There's no way the Lions pick that kind of player. So I wouldn't do that. And so then I'm like, okay, well, Derek Harmon is still here, and I really like Derek Harmon, but Derek Harmon is like probably more of like a defensive tackle than a defensive end, because this is going to be someone on the other side of, Aiden Hutchinson. So that's not going to really work. And then you look at the other guys. There's a guy that has gotten a little bit of first round love. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm just going to say, hey, screw it. Like, let's do it. I'm going JT Tuimoloau. That's who I'm going to go. It's someone that has gotten actual first round love. Very quiet, but it's been there. And the Lions have shown in the first round they don't really care, to be honest. They'll kind of pick guys that they really like. And in a world where a lot of them are gone, like Derek Harmon's better, but he just does not really fit what they want to do. Braden Swinson is a potential pick here. And I think that could make some sense. If you want to switch Braden Swinson for JT, that's fine. But I've heard first round love for JT just because of his consistency and his kind of mindset. And I think the mindset fits perfectly with the Lions. Very much feels like a player there. So haven't seen it yet at all, but might as well do it here on this channel. I'm going to go JT for the Lions.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to go there were some rumors about like Jamison Williams potentially being traded. Maybe you're going to
maybe
do a wild card and take a receiver. But that is a really interesting pick. I don't think I've seen that one at all either. But yeah, Tuimoloau, that's a hard name. I don't even know if I can say it. But he was a guy that I think was also seen as a early first round pick or mid first, like kind of the beginning of the season. And he's kind of slipped a little bit. I don't think he was as...
And he didn't even have a bad year either. Like
I just don't think he might have taken the leap or had like the testing that you would hope for him, to be an early first round pick. But I definitely think he's got, like you mentioned, the consistency, just putting multiple good years on tape for Ohio State, where it could be a guy you just take with So even just having a high floor, the bottom, the first round, and the Lions, they need more pass rushing help. You get Aiden Hutchinson, and that's kind of it off the edge. I mean, Marcus Davenport was a guy that they signed, and then
can't stay healthy to save his life.
Yeah, like he does every year. He was hurt within, I think, like the first 2 or 3 weeks. I like that. And now the Commanders at 29. I'm gonna go.
And also, I will say for JT, like he ran a 4.62 40, which is really good for an edge. His vert and broad jump were good. He's athletic in terms of his measurables. Like none of it's really crazy below. So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know why he's really was getting pushed down so much. So that's why I kind of think he might be a first round pick. But you can go with Washington here at 29.
Yeah, I think this has been a popular spot. I've had Amari and Hampton go. I'm gonna do it again. I think the Commanders, they're kind of looking for a new bell cow back. I think they were pretty disappointed last year with Austin Eckler. He wasn't as good for them, I think, as they were hoping for. And then you have the guy that drafted Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama a couple years ago. He had a huge fumbling issue for like every game he was fumbling the football. So he's kind of finding his way out a little bit of favor there. And Hampton is just a guy that I think could add some power to the speed of Jaden Daniels. Kind of like I don't want to say like a Walmart version, but like a smaller version of like Derrick Henry and like Lamar. Like that would be kind of what they're going for there. And I think that would be like a really fun run game because it was obviously electric last year because you got Cliff Kingsbury, who's great at whole scheme thing with designing offenses in the run game there. But Jaden Daniels is a big part of that as well. And then if you add in Hampton to those zone reads and then even just hand him the football, I think that could be really fun kind of match there. So I really like Hampton a lot. I actually don't think Hampton is like that much worse of a prospect than even Genty, who we had going top 10. He's a absolute freak, a physical specimen, over 6 feet tall, over 220 pounds. He ran a really good 40-yard dash. He actually might be faster than Genty. We won't know for sure ever because Genty didn't run the 40-yard dash. But, I mean, he ran like I think a 4.46. That would be pretty – I think that would be kind of in range of what Genty would have ran. So I do think with his – and being a great athlete, I think Hampton will definitely find himself in the first round.
Yeah, his broad jump is insane. 130. That's 98th percentile. Yeah, I think he's a stud. I think he's definitely a first-round pick. This is very low for where he normally would go.
Agreed.
I think he's like a better David Montgomery, and by that I mean David Montgomery is good, but he needs, a like Hampton. Like he could have this similar impact, if not better, but he doesn't need Jahmyr Gibbs. That's kind of what I think of him, which is like pretty big. Or a comparison that you maybe have heard before that I really like because I looked it up a little bit too, like Deuce McAllister, who a lot of you don't even know, but he was like a insane running back for like his peak was like very short, but he was like one of the best running backs in the NFL and like offensive player of the year candidate, like insane. So, and he's just very similar athletically to him. So yeah, super good. Absolutely loved him. I watched him in person when I went to the game to cover. It was the final home game for them versus NC State, and all the UNC fans, like no one was there because they all sucked and we beat them. And he was he was still so good. Like he broke off like 2 runs for touchdowns, like when it was just totally clogged in the middle. I'm like, geez. So vision super good. I think if he goes higher, like if if we don't have that Genty trade and the Broncos like take him at 20, I think that the Commanders, like, I don't know what they'll do, but they might just stay. And honestly, they might just pick TreVeyon Henderson because TreVeyon Henderson's gotten a lot of love as RB3 and some like sneaky, like back end of the first kind of love. So I think TreVeyon Henderson could also be a Commander, and they might just take him at 29 if Hampton goes higher. But then with the Bills at 30, I'm not going to do it because I want to pick for the Bills. But I think if there is a trade in this world that we've created, it would probably be the Giants for Milroe, getting a fifth-year option on Jalen Milroe. But then again, I don't even know if they even care about that. At least the teams right now, like with the position that the Giants are in. So,
we also had them.
I probably won't do that here.
They also had to move up for Dart.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot about that. I mean the Steelers, the Saints, we kind of already don't even having a pick. So, yeah, I guess never mind. That doesn't make any sense. But the Giants, if they didn't take a quarterback, I think
then they could move
I'd
up
have them there.
Yeah.
But I just think the Bills are a potential trade down team for a team that wants to trade up for a back end quarterback or something like that.
Yeah, they do move down a lot,
like they did last year. When they moved down a lot last year at the end, and we didn't know who they were going to take, but they took Keon Coleman. So here with them staying, I'm gonna go the guy who is, he's gonna go in the first round. It seems. Some mocks kind of forget because he's ranked so low on PFF's board. It's Nicky Manwari. I think he's probably just gonna be a first round pick. They need safety help. They obviously had their great safety duo that they had before. Cole Bishop is like solid, but he's not really going to be the same as these other guys were. And then, great story, Damar Hamlin, but you're just not a starting, NFL safety. I'm sorry. So, I think Nicky Manwari, they bet on a guy who literally had, I'm not kidding, like the greatest athletic testing of all time. Like it's absurd. So, but he is objectively raw, but his production was great. So, maybe you can say, hey, you can't just win as an athlete. Yeah, most of the time, but sometimes you can if you're this absurd. So, he can play in the box, he can play back, like play a lot of spots. I don't know. He's low because he's raw-ish, but I think some people just kind of need to realize, like, hey, he's this good of an athlete. He might just be able to succeed like that and then maybe get even better. So, I'll go Nick there for the Bills because I think he's probably going to be a first-round pick. I think he's more likely to be a first-round pick over Malachi Starks, which is a little shocking, but that seems like what might happen.
Yeah, I like that fit. The Bills, they had probably one of the worst safety tandems in the league last year, so I think definitely upgrading that room a lot of sense. The Chiefs at 31, they'd be very happy because Josh Simmons, he'd be still on the board here.
Wow.
And I think that'd be a great selection for them. That couldn't step in right away. Like I mentioned, kind of already went on my tangent with Simmons. But I think the Chiefs, they've been struggling to find good starting tackles because they pick bottom of the first round every year. And it's very hard to find tackles that can be good that are not picked inside like the top, 15, 20 picks. It's just kind of how the position goes. So I think Kansas City would like taking Simmons here, although he does have some risk with his injury. But I guess a small sample size of elite film. But you're picking at 31, you got to take some of these chances. And they just need more help on the offensive line. I think Jalen Moore was the guy they signed from the 49ers, and he's just been kind of a career swing tackle backup. I don't think I would want him to be my day one starter. So maybe just he can be some insurance for you with a rookie that you bring in. But I think Simmons would be a great fit in Kansas City, and I think they'd be very happy to get him bottom of the first round.
Then we end it with the Eagles. With the Chiefs, I think, again, they seem to want to be aggressive. So if they trade up, they could still get Simmons. Again, like we said, if they trade up. Or in a world where tackles and offensive linemen go really quickly, they could try and snag Josh Connerly. Or if he's even gone, like I've heard rumors that Ariante Ursary could be a first-round pick, which would be crazy. But that could be a possibility if just the tackle market just blows up here in this round. But then ending it with the Philadelphia Eagles could be a number of different things. I think when maybe, you kind of look at the needs that they have, I think that, D-line, they just always love taking. Obviously, they really feel good about taking a bunch of guys kind of on the defensive line and replenishing, and they did lose Josh Sweat, so that's a possibility there. Safety is a possibility. I think they could look there. I know they have Reed Blankenship. Outside of that, couldn't really tell you. Sidney Brown, I guess. I just looked. They signed Lewis Seen, former first-round bust, but probably not relying on him. Receiver, I've seen rumors of, and the receivers here look really good. Apparently, I don't know if you've looked into it. The AJ Brown trade rumors, I don't know. Apparently, there's been.
I said that. I think I made a recent mock, and I think it was probably some Eagles fan. He was like, "It's literally impossible to trade AJ Brown because of cap hit. Like we literally can't trade him this year." I don't know how true that is, but that was something that was told to me that
anything is possible with that kind of stuff. Quarterbacks have been traded with that.
I just think they were saying that it just wouldn't make any sense for the Eagles to do it. But Who knows?
No, just I mean, with them winning a Super Bowl, no, but you never know. Maybe they're, I don't know. Maybe he's annoying. Maybe they're sick and tired of him in the building. Maybe something. I don't know. But they've got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and then can you tell me who else? Like Jahan Dotson, Terrace Marshall, former Panther legend. Like, yeah, he's horrendous. So could be receiver, but I would prefer doing that lower.
For sure, yeah.
You don't need to take one in the first round, but maybe you love Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, which I want to put them in the first round. I really do. It's been really hard. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's been really hard. Maybe the Lions actually do it, but it seems more likely they do edge. Other than that, I just find it hard to have a team that's actually going to do it. Like the Packers, do you think they're going to take a first-round skills position player? Maybe, but I don't really know. The Chargers kind of prefer tight end with Loveland or the other Michigan guys. I don't know. It's just hard to find them in here. But with the Eagles as well, I'm not going to do it because I already did it in my other one, but I mean, Mason Taylor it seems like he's rumored to be a first-round pick, and the rumors are the Eagles are looking to trade Dallas Goedert for, not to pay him and everything. So if I were to pick one based on rumor stuff, I would probably go Mason Taylor. So you can keep that in the back of your mind. And then the other one I really like is Landon Jackson because he fits that kind of Josh Sweat mold. So Landon Jackson could be there, Mason Taylor, few guys. I'll go one because I don't want him to last. I don't know if he's going to fall out of the first round. He still could, but I think they still need it. And I'll go Malachi Starks because their safety room is just Reed Blankenship, and that's it. Trey Amos is one that I think they could take at corner, but it seems like Adoree Jackson they grabbed to try and fix that need. Trey Amos is another guy I think could go in the first round, but we'll go Malachi Starks here to end off the first round. And then I guess we could just mention, like we said, the quarterbacks. I think the first two picks of the second round, if the draft falls out like this, or at least the first one, would probably be Tyler Shuck. Seems like he's probably going to be a Brown, and he'll probably go there, which, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens there. Kind of interesting stuff there. I mean, he's the most NFL ready. I think he has obviously been pretty solid when he was good last year when he played, but he's always unhealthy. So kind of weird there. But Eagles could do so many different things. Really hard to pick. Yeah. In this world, though, we'll go Starks because he's still available.
Yeah, I like that fit a lot. I think I've had him mocked a safety, whether it was Emmett Worry or Starks. I just think, with C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaving, they need placement there, and I think Starks kind of fits that Georgia DNA that they always look for, Harry Roseman. So that makes a lot of sense. But I actually really like how this mock turned out. I mean, we just have a good variety of kind of your slam dunk picks, and then a lot of crazy stuff going on too, with Genty going to the Denver Broncos inside the top 10. We got McMillan going in the top 5. I mean, I just like the variety that we had, but I think it turned out
I'm interested to see how many of them really happen or stand, potentially go on to really be there. I wonder.
I'll have to go back and look at our final predictions last year that we made and see how many we got. I would be.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
I'd be surprised if we got more than like 10, but I think that would.
I doubt it.
I'd set the line at like 9.5, but yeah, this is going to be our final kind of predictions for the 2025 NFL Draft. Let us know in the comments section below. Do you guys kind of agree with some of these predictions? If you like who we had your team selecting, and if not, who we should be having our eyes on for the real thing come Thursday night. But I appreciate you, Stone, for sitting here for a couple hours. We kind of went on a couple rants here that got us over some time, but I appreciate you coming on, and I'll leave Stone's links in the description below. You guys can go check out some of his content, but that's going to do it for this mock draft, and we just kind of sit back and wait for Thursday.